Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So as we know, the Olympics is going to be held right here, well, in LA in 2028. And Trump issued an executive order banning males from competing in women's competitions. He also mentioned the Olympics. With the Olympics in mind, he said that anybody who comes here to compete in the Olympics needs to come with the correct passport that rightly reflects their sex. Any male athlete trying to come here to compete in women's competitions for the Olympics will be denied a visa.
The commander-in-chief also instructed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to ensure visa denials for men attempting to fraudulently enter the United States while identifying themselves as women athletes ahead of the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. Last month, the State Department froze all applications for passports with X gender markers that mandates all government-issued identification documents to reflect an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female.
In Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because when I speak, we speak with authority.
That was also part of the executive order. That was something that he mentioned, and I thought that was a really good way to weed out any male athlete who wants to come here to compete in women's competitions. Imane Khelif won gold at the Paris Olympics 2024, as well as Lin Yuting. And remember, both boxers were banned from the World Championships in 2023 because they both failed gender tests. I believe it was 2 gender tests they failed.
I try to say that the medical result, that result, looks and see the laboratories that this boxer is very.
The IBA essentially confirmed that they are male, that they have XY chromosomes, and that's why they were banned from competing. And of course, the Olympic Committee dismissed the IBA, saying that they've been discredited, saying that they're linked to Russia. So that makes the boxers female somehow. It certainly does not. If you have XY chromosomes, you are male. These are boxers who aren't transgender, but they have disorders in sexual development. And remember, hospital records were leaked regarding Imane Khelif, confirming that the boxer has XY chromosomes, confirming that the boxer has male sexual organs, such as testes, no female reproductive organs because the boxer isn't female.
Firstly, there's a lot of confusion in the reporting around this. Obviously, there have been some cases in the past where women born as women have naturally high testosterone levels, and sometimes there have been cases where it's transgender women. Do we know which it is in this case?
It's never about naturally high testosterone levels in women. When they talk about females with these high testosterone levels, they're really talking about males with disorders of sex development. And in some cases, rarely happens in developed countries, but in some cases, babies born with these disorders are wrongly labeled as female, and then they grow up and go through male puberty, and everyone then knows they're male. They have, I don't know these 2 individuals in particular, but this is well documented now, for example, with Caster Semenya, that they have internal testes, they produce testosterone, they go through puberty, they have all those advantages. And frankly, the prospect of these people boxing against women, if they are male, is terrifying.
So you can have a document saying you're a woman, but you still have those benefits from your height, your weight, your lung capacity, your ability, in boxing, your ability to punch, 2.5 times harder than a woman, and things like that. But this is very different because we don't actually know for certain, other than what's been put out in the International Boxing Association, exactly what the situation is with both this Algerian and, of course, the Taiwanese fighter as well, who both won gold. But it is believed that they were sort of basically intersex, that they were born with not very easily identifiable sexual organs when they were born, and both were raised as girls But actually, when testing was done, they established that actually they had male chromosomes, and they've been mistakenly raised as girls. They are men.
Well, if they have the condition that Caster Semenya has, and we know about that because of Semenya taking it to the courts and everything was published, then they would be babies who were thought to be girls or who had ambiguous genitals when they were born, registered as girls, but would have gone through a full male puberty. And at that point, all would have become clear. And you're right, we don't know about these two. The reason we don't know is because they've insisted that no one's allowed to say. So when the International Boxing Association held a press conference to try and shed some light on this, they announced that they had been warned in writing by the National Olympic Committees of these boxers' countries not to reveal the test results that they had obtained.
Now, of course, we can have compassion for people born with DSD, but the reality is, if you are male, you do not belong in women's boxing. Female boxers have spoken out and said that this was like no other person they've ever fought, no other opponent they've ever been in the ring with, never been punched like that before. We saw what happened to the Italian boxer, Angela. She bailed out in a matter of seconds. Not because she is weak. I certainly wouldn't want to get in the ring with her, but because she was fighting a male boxer. So I don't want to go through everything again, but I'll go over it briefly before I get anybody in my comments telling me that I'm mean for saying this person is male, when this person clearly is male, because if you have XY chromosomes, that's exactly what you are. So first we had a female boxer who trained with this person. I believe it was in Spain. Khelif's team allegedly told her that Khelif was born in the mountains, and that explains the features that Khelif has. She knew this person was male the whole time, but they lied to her. They gaslit her and said, oh, when you're born in the mountains, this is the strength that you acquire when you're born up there in the mountains. We've had Khelif's coach say that this person had issues with chromosomes, or there was a problem with the chromosomes. This has come out of Khelif's coach's own mouth. But the coach doesn't care. The coach says, well, despite there being a problem with the chromosomes, Khelif should still be allowed to compete in women's competitions. So the coach has essentially admitted that this person is male. But because, just like with transgender athletes, we should still allow them to compete. Doesn't matter what happens to the women. Doesn't matter that you're ruining women's sports and endangering female athletes. That doesn't matter. Just let the person have what they want. Because guess what? When they go over into the women's competition, they're suddenly number one. And being anything less than number one isn't good enough for them. So they'll rather step into the ring, put a female athlete in danger, and steal medals from women. And we know that it was recently revealed by an advisor to the UN that 900 medals have been taken from female athletes and gone to male athletes, masquerading as women. Why? Well, partly because the IOC got rid of gender testing in 1999. So women have had to compete against male athletes for the longest time, and have lost out on medals, have lost out on opportunities, have lost out on accolades that rightly belong to them. But that's okay, apparently, as long as the male athlete gets what he wants. So the IBA, yes, the so-called discredited IBA, but somehow the IBA knows what a woman is. They recently weighed into the fact that 2 medals in women's boxing, 2 gold medals, went to male athletes at the Olympics last year. And they said last month that they are going to file a criminal complaint against the IOC. So they banned these 2 boxers from the World Championships in 2023, with the association's president, Imane Khelif, explaining that after a series of DNA tests, not testosterone tests, DNA tests, they said it was uncovered that these athletes were trying to fool their colleagues and pretend to be women. They said that this was a deliberate attempt to mislead people to be able to compete in women's boxing. Now, when it comes to DSD, usually by puberty, people who suffer from this condition become aware of their true sex. If you're going through male puberty, that's usually a big sign that you're male. So the IBA said that the fact that both boxers were permitted to competing and win their respective women's events may serve as grounds for criminal prosecution. So Khelif actually responded to the IBA in a statement that was posted to Instagram. And Khelif said the following: "For 8 years, I have fought for my dream. 8 years of sacrifice, discipline, and perseverance to stand on the Olympic stage and represent my country with pride. I have earned my place and I will continue to stand firm in the face of any challenge. For 2 years I have taken the high road while my name and image have been used, unauthorized, to further personal and political agendas through the spreading and dissemination of baseless lies and misinformation. But silence is no longer an option. The International Boxing Association, IBA, an organization that I am no longer associated with and which is no longer recognized by the International Olympic Committee, have again made baseless accusations that are false and offensive, using them to further their agenda. This is a matter that concerns not just me, but the broader principles of fairness and due process in sport. So once again, Khelif is in the spotlight because Khelif sat down for an interview discussing the upcoming Olympics in 2028 in LA. And Khelif has every intention of competing in those Olympics. In the women's category, just try and stop me, Khelif basically said. Not in those words, but, you know. So the interview was aired today, Wednesday, with ITV, and some clips were released. And Khelif was asked about the 2028 Olympics. Khelif was asked about Trump's executive order. And I believe Khelif is under the impression that the executive order simply applies to transgender athletes. So the excerpts have been released ahead of the broadcast, and this is some of what Khelif said. I will give you a straightforward answer. The US president issued a decision related to transgender policies in America. I am not transgender. This does not concern me, and it does not intimidate me. That is my response. Khelif was also asked about repeating the success of the Paris Olympics, winning another gold medal. Interrupting the presenter, apparently, Khelif said, second gold medal, of course, in America, Los Angeles. So Trump's executive order is keeping men out of women's sports. It's not just relating to transgender athletes, it's also related to male athletes in general. So if somebody's male, they are not going to be permitted to compete in the women's category. They're not even going to be given a visa. There are some transgender athletes, some male athletes, whose passports will say female. I believe Khelif is said to have a birth certificate that says female, which is one of the reasons the IOC used to allow Khelif to compete. But what Trump said, what the president of the United States said, was that if you are trying to enter into the US deceptively as a woman, when you are in fact male, you will not be granted a visa. Perhaps it's time for Khelif to do what many of us have been saying Khelif should do for the longest time, which is to provide your own gender test. Go to a doctor that you trust, your own doctor, and do a quick cheek swab. Remember, Khelif never contested the IBA's decision. Khelif can bash the IBA all day long, for years even, but Khelif has never challenged their decision, never contested it. And all you got to do to contest it is just do your own cheek swab and say, this is my proof that I am female. That's it. Up until now, that has never been done by Lin Yuting or Khelif. No gender test of their own to prove that they are female. And my advice to Khelif would be to do exactly that if you want to be granted a visa to enter into the US. You need to prove you're female. And until that happens, I don't want to hear anything about how mean I am for calling this person male. I don't want to hear anything about lawsuits, because as part of those lawsuits, you're going to have to prove you're female as well. It happened to Caster Semenya. This is how it was confirmed that Caster Semenya is male, due to the lawsuits that Caster Semenya initiated. That the IOC has constantly defended Khelif, has constantly stood by their decision to allow these boxers to compete in the Paris Olympics in the women's category, saying that these boxers were born female and all of that gaslighting nonsense that they threw upon us, talking about how they have documents saying they're female. Okay, when the IOC doesn't know whether they're female or not because they've never required these boxers to submit gender tests like the IBA had the due diligence to do. For as corrupt as they supposedly are, They saw that there was suspicion around these boxers and did the right thing. Required them to prove that they have XX chromosomes, which we know they were unable to do. And that's why they were banned. That doesn't sound corrupt to me. But what is corrupt is permitting male athletes to compete in women's boxing of all sports. I call that corrupt. And I call that deceptive. Continuing to maintain that these boxers are legitimately allowed in these women's categories. So do you think Khelif is going to somehow manage to compete at the 2028 Olympics? I mean, nothing surprises me anymore, to be honest. Nothing surprises me anymore, but we know that this boxer is male. So it would be a huge travesty if this person was allowed to compete at the 2028 Olympics. Technically, if the governing body in Algeria is okay with Khelif competing, then the IOC is not going to stand in the way. They've left it to the individual countries to come up with their own participation policies. All it may ride on is the ability of Khelif to obtain a visa to compete. That's what it may depend on. And I think it's pretty smart that Trump has implemented that. Not even granting them a visa, cutting them off at the source, to prevent them from coming to the Olympics here. I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully the IOC will do the right thing. Maybe enough pressure can be put on the IOC to do the right thing and to finally protect the female category. Maybe bring back the gender testing. How about that? So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.